What if I told you two Hollywood cowboys shared a secret so powerful, they took it to the grave? This isn't tabloid gossip, this is William Boyd, Hopalong Cassidy himself, finally breaking the silence no one expected. Imagine being on top of the world, and then one headline nearly erases you from Hollywood forever. In the late 1920s, William Boyd was a rising star. He had the jawline, the charm, and the kind of face that lit up silent film screens. He wasn't just another actor, he was the face of rugged elegance. Movies like The Volga Boatman and The King of Kings catapulted him into leading man status. He had Hollywood's attention, and they don't give that easily. But then, a single mistake, and his entire life unraveled. Another man with the same name got tangled up in a criminal scandal, but the press didn't care about facts. They just saw a name and printed it. William Boyd. Suddenly Boyd was being blamed for crimes he didn't commit. Studios panicked. His phone stopped ringing. His career went into a death spiral. He was blacklisted. No proof, no trial, just gone. In the blink of an eye, the golden boy of the silent era was poisoned to Hollywood. He lost roles, lost income, lost his reputation. No one stood up for him. No one said, "This is the wrong man." And just like that, William Boyd vanished from the spotlight. But here's the twist. He didn't fold. He didn't give up. Instead, he pulled off one of the boldest comebacks in film history with a move so risky it could have left him broke, forgotten, and humiliated. But just when Hollywood shut the door on him, William Boyd kicked it back open with a black hat and a plan so crazy it shouldn't have worked, but it changed everything. He bet everything on a black hat and rewrote history. In 1935, when no studio would touch him, William Boyd made a move no one saw coming. He spent nearly every cent he had to buy the rights to a second-rate cowboy character from Pulp Fiction, Hopalong Cassidy. At the time, it sounded insane. Western films were dying. Hopalong Cassidy wasn't a household name. He wasn't even cool. He was a leftover from dime novels, a grizzled outlaw with no real future. But Boyd saw something no one else did. A hero America could believe in again. He didn't just star in the first Hopalong movie. He produced it, funded it, controlled the character, the tone, the direction, did everything. And he transformed Hopalong Cassidy into something radical for the time. A clean-cut, morally unshakable cowboy who wore black but stood for good. A silver-haired symbol of justice in a violent, unpredictable world. Parents trusted him, kids adored him, and studios, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. By the time most people noticed what he'd done, Boyd had created a franchise machine. Between 1935 and 1948, he starred in 66 Hopalong Cassidy films. That's not just output, that's a movement. But Boyd wasn't done. He saw where the future was heading, and he owned it. While other stars laughed at TV, Boyd syndicated his films, making Hopalong Cassidy one of the first cowboy brands to dominate television. He became the first Hollywood actor to turn a character into a multimedia empire, from lunchboxes and cereal boxes to comic books and live tours. Hopalong wasn't just a cowboy, he was a household name. And William Boyd? He went from being a Hollywood reject to one of the most powerful men in family entertainment. But behind all that success was a man with scars and secrets. One of them involved a famously silent friendship with another Western icon, Randolph Scott. And when Boyd finally broke that silence, it changed everything. He made millions smile while quietly carrying the kind of pain that never leaves you. Hollywood knew him as Hopalong Cassidy, the smiling, heroic cowboy who never broke the rules. But William Boyd's real life? It wasn't filled with silver spurs and applause. It was full of heartbreak, the kind that leaves a scar no one sees. Boyd was married 5 times. And while the press painted him as a charmer, the truth was far darker. Each marriage revealed another side of him, a man searching for stability in a world that only loved him when the cameras were rolling. But nothing compared to the pain he carried from his second marriage. With actress Ruth Miller, Boyd had a son. His name was William Wallace Boyd. A baby boy with the world ahead of him. But just 9 months after he was born, that baby was gone. Whooping cough. A disease that swept through homes like a thief in the night and stole Boyd's only child. He never talked about it publicly, Not in interviews, not in speeches, not even when pressed. But behind the scenes, friends said the grief never left him. He simply folded it into himself, quietly, permanently. That loss, that crushing silence, followed him everywhere. It may have been the real reason behind the divorce. The real reason he chased love again and again, and never fully found it until much later in life. And maybe, just maybe, it was the reason he connected so deeply with a man who understood the value of silence better than anyone in Hollywood, Randolph Scott. They shared no screen time, but a lifetime of loyalty. Here's where things get interesting. For decades, Hollywood insiders whispered about the strange, quiet bond between William Boyd and Randolph Scott, two of the biggest names in westerns, but never seen partying together, never photographed at premieres side by side. And yet, everyone knew they were close. But what was the truth? Late in life, when Boyd was long retired and the hopalong spotlight had faded, he finally opened up. And what he revealed? It wasn't drama, it wasn't scandal, it was something deeper. Something that said more about real friendship than anything Hollywood had ever shown. Boyd described Scott as a man of few words, the kind of man who walked into a room and didn't need to talk to be heard. Randolph didn't chase fame, Boyd said. He walked beside it. Their friendship wasn't loud, they didn't headline tabloids or hit the red carpet together, but behind closed doors, they exchanged letters. They had secret lunches. They fished in quiet places far from the buzz of LA. They trusted each other. And in a town built on betrayal, that trust meant everything. What really bonded them wasn't just the Western genre. It was a mission. They both cared about legacy. They wanted to create characters that made boys believe in doing the right thing and gave fathers a reason to be proud. And here's where the whispers get loud again. Because people didn't just talk about their careers. They talked about Randolph Scott's personal life a lot. The Hollywood rumor mill churned for years about Scott's long companionship with Cary Grant. Were they just roommates? Or something more? For decades, no one in Scott's inner circle said a word, until Boyd, finally, did. And what he said? It wasn't defensive. It wasn't scandalous. It was something far more rare in showbiz: grace. Randy didn't owe the world an explanation for who he loved or how he lived, Boyd said. He lived with dignity. That should have been enough. It was a quiet bombshell. Because, coming from someone like Boyd, someone who never spoke on anyone's private life, it said everything. This wasn't just about friendship, it was about two men in a ruthless industry who understood that loyalty and legacy mattered more than public approval. They didn't need to shout their truth, they lived it. Hollywood always claimed it had no secrets. That was a lie. For years, the connection between Randolph Scott and Cary Grant wasn't just a topic, it was a storm. They lived together for over a decade. They shared homes, vacations, life, but in an era when even a rumor could destroy your entire career, they never said a word. And Hollywood, it played both sides, romanticizing their bachelor lifestyle in magazines, while whispering something else entirely behind closed doors. Were they just close friends? Or was there something deeper, something the studios begged them to keep hidden? Now here's where William Boyd comes back in and breaks the silence, not with gossip, not with speculation, but with something far more dangerous in Tinseltown: truth. Boyd wasn't just speaking for Scott, he was protecting him even after death. Randy didn't owe the world an explanation, Boyd said. He lived with grace and decency. That should have been enough. No anger, no accusations, just a clear message. The world didn't deserve to judge a man it never really understood. And coming from Hopalong Cassidy, a man whose very career was built on clean morals and upright values, it was a message that hit hard. Boyd wasn't just talking about privacy, he was talking about freedom. Freedom to love, freedom to live, freedom to keep the sacred parts of your life off camera. In a time where silence meant survival, Boyd's rare words echoed louder than any headline ever could. And in that moment, he didn't just defend a friend, he redefined what it meant to be a man in Hollywood. But Boyd wasn't done talking. and what he said next about his own legacy and final years. Hollywood never expected that. Boyd refused to tarnish the legacy of Hopalong Cassidy. He turned down lucrative endorsements if he felt they were wrong for kids. He disappeared from the spotlight when he knew the image mattered more than the man. Where other stars faded, clinging to fame, Boyd stepped away with honor. William Boyd passed in 1972 after a quiet battle with Parkinson's and heart failure. By his side until the end, Grace Bradley, his fifth wife and soulmate. Today, they rest side by side in California, a symbol of lasting love behind Hollywood's silver screen. His star still shines on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. His name still lives in the Hall of Western Performers, and his voice, in that rare interview, still echoes with truth, loyalty, and reverence. In an industry built on fiction, Boyd and Scott lived a friendship that didn't need a spotlight to be real, and maybe that's the most heroic story of all.